So uncomfortable conversations with either a white racist or a black man, whatever is the most helpful for you. Today we want to talk about narratives and how those stories get into our minds and get into our hearts. We have these narratives or beliefs at play all the time in us, and they affect the way we live, the decisions we make, and we want to talk a little bit about that today. I want to start by talking about. I went back and watched episode 4, and as I do with all of these, I watch them again because you can pick up on body language or conversations and things. And as I was watching episode 4, I had an uncomfortable moment, so uncomfortable conversations again. There was a part in our talk where TJ was kind and asked me like why it's becoming easier for me to talk about this, and I told you that it was because you're a safe person, and what I meant in that is that he's very patient with me, and you've been very open and asking questions, and but then I took it a step further. I said, why I don't know why I'd be afraid of you. You wouldn't beat me up and take my wallet. It wouldn't do harm to me. Mm-hmm. And then the next thing TJ did was really wise. He talked about a couple real instances in his life that where real harm could be done to him or his family. And as I went back and I watched that, I realized that the fear that I have, and I named this on our first episode, how when I was a little boy growing up, I had one or two black friends, not afraid of them at all.
Yeah.
And then somewhere, I don't know when it was in my life, I just suddenly became aware that I was afraid of black people.
Or
Unconsciously
switch.
Like things like walk to the other side of the street when you see black people coming. Lock your doors in your car when you're driving through the right neighborhoods. Or wrong neighborhoods, or even that word wrong neighborhoods implies neighborhood with black people that I need to be afraid of. And what I recognize is I have this narrative or this story that is completely imagined that black people would do harm to white people.
Well, it's not completely imagined because you were flooded with content.
Somehow the content got in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not really imagined when it's just what you've seen and been taught.
You're right.
That's the same as imagination. You've been seen and taught this and not taught anything else, so you start to believe it.
But what I also mean by that is there is more evidence in history of white people doing harm to black people than black people doing harm to white people.
Absolutely. Overwhelming.
Yeah. Overwhelming for 401 years.
Yeah, African Americans and don't have a history of violence.
Yeah, and
yet white people or the world.
I'm the one that, and what I also recognized in that is that narrative at work, particularly in that conversation about safety, it was saying to TJ unconsciously, you have to prove to me first that you're safe before I'll be ready to have this conversation about race, which there's no proof that you have to make.
Yeah, you're right.
And until I get rid of that narrative, I will never be open to saying that this is a real conversation that I absolutely have to be a part of. So, my apologies for that. And we're all learning, and that's why, I'm grateful that we can have that.
And that's what's so cool about these conversations is because you're a friend of mine and I know your heart. Even the red flag maybe subconsciously it didn't even really pop up on that because I know your heart.
Yeah.
And it's nice that you can go up and process that and say, ooh, and you may even, I might have even had that moment for a second as well, but now we can talk about it and say, wow, this is what happens. This is what happens.
And in the moment, I just want to commend you. Like, I think you've spent your whole life doing what Jesus said, loving enemies, more than I've had to. If white people ever are told to love black people because they're your enemy, we have to make up reasons why they would be our enemies. Yeah, I was in a position that I've been enemy to black people just in the system for so long, and you've modeled that well.
Yeah, but so many people don't believe they have to make up reasons because they have these facts to show, look at the violence amongst each other, look at this, and it gives you back to back to our academic system, which we've been taught. Everything has been created and that's great, and that's amazing, and that this country is white. It's just white, amazing. The founding fathers, and that plays something on a person's brain, and that continues on.
Right.
I mean, you want to talk uncomfortable conversations? I mean,
That's a big one.
Jesus wasn't white like you, Dan,
He
or
was
like
he
most
was
of the
not.
audience watching right now for his press. He really wasn't.
He was
It's
not.
uncomfortable sometimes to say that. To talk out
'Cause
that conversation.
I've been over to Palestine and I've seen people and what color they are a little bit. They look a whole lot more like you than they do look like
much
me.
different, and that can be uncomfortable for people
Yeah.
as well. That doesn't matter. Well, as a child being raised in God, the Almighty, the Son of God, Jesus Christ, when He looks white, it does something to us. We don't.
Yeah.
You know.
Is that your God? Yeah.
So it's just another part of that privilege that plays a part that's not your fault.
Right.
It's
yeah.
not.
Yeah. It just unconsciously is being fed and taught. But if I'm not ever aware of it and I don't use language to own it, then I don't ever work on it.
Yeah.
And I want to work on that. So
And
I got a way to go. I got some, but I want to talk today too.
I like what Jan
God.
Elliott. I like what Jan Elliott says. Dan, she says there is no races, which is actually, if you really go look at the history of human race, she says there's only one race. It's the human race. Depending on where you were born and your history is the pigment of your skin.
Yeah. That would be a great way to live.
Adapted. We're the human race.
Yeah. So TJ, as I mentioned in our first episode, is the founder of a program called the Vision Program, and you can see that at thevisionprogram.com. And he's a motivational speaker primarily, and he's got a course there that he calls The Art of the Hustle, right? TAOTH.
Yeah.
The art of the hustle.
The art of the hustle. Yeah. Teaching entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And financial literacy.
Yeah, and why would you say this is such an important program for students today? And remember, we're talking about narrative and stories. What kind of stories do they get, and how does this help give them new stories?
Well, the Vision Program is a program I started to mentor, educate, motivate, inspire kids like myself who were caught up in the inner city entrapments and miseducation, the street culture, hip hop culture, got caught up in the judicial system. I come from that background, so the grace of God as I got to change my life and learn new things, I said I needed to go back and show the youth that there is people like them that come from a very, very similar background that found a way to navigate out and be successful without what society had conditioned them to believe is success and what you need to be successful. So I wanted to show them there's a difference, and entrepreneurship is one of the things we teach. We also teach hip-hop culture, the miseducation of street culture, financial literacy, things on gang culture. There's a bunch of programs I run with these kids, and it's 90 to 95% incarcerated youth. So I do some after-school programming, and I work with different agencies. And in Lancaster, I work with the school district of Lancaster a lot, but most of my work is done with incarcerated
90
kids.
to 95%.
Yeah,
with incarcerated youth.
Yeah, because you said.
So what's the story they get of themselves by the time they're incarcerated? I mean, it's not just by the time they get there. It's not just like I'm a C or D student in school.
Yeah, well.
What are some of those layers of things you think they?
Well, this is the background of where we come from. Again, when I started the Vision Program, there wasn't many. I did a talk called the Paper Plane Effect. I did a TEDx Lancaster talk, which I was blessed to have the opportunity to do, and I explained in that TEDx talk that when kids, depending on what a child sees and touches and smells and experiences every day, is what establishes their belief system, what becomes their reality. So I use an example of, I live in the suburbs now, I live in a nice neighborhood that I worked hard to try to get to in my life. When my child wakes up in the morning, and I mean, he's grown now, but when he woke up in the morning and looked out the front door, as he looked to the neighbor's house, there was a nice big house there and 2 vehicles and a jet ski and a boat in the driveway. When my son looks out the other door, there's maybe a pool in the yard, and he knows these people. The one's is a professor at college, and this other neighbors, and they're both in the real estate. Mother and father both have jobs, both went to college. I'm not saying everything is butterflies and cupcakes, but he or she sees these things every day, and they become a reality, something they can achieve, or even be bigger. That is what they see every day. So it's just about a belief system. A kid down on South Lime Street or Ann Street wakes up and sees something different when they wake up and look outside. The neighbor's house, there's no boats. There's no jet skis in the driveway. There's not even driveways. There's no retired professors and real estate executives. There is a lot of poverty. There's a lot of crime. There's not a father or mother in the household, because over 70% now of inner city households are fatherless households. It's like 68% or something, which is incredible. So now you have a kid that wakes up, doesn't see any success around him, mother and father didn't go to college. As a matter of fact, he doesn't really know father. Mom didn't go to college, and then they go to school, and the system says you need to do this and do that to be successful. Well, this kid doesn't see that as reality, and they stop believing in themselves. Academically, may not perform well. School doesn't give out awards for kids that worked hard and got C's. As myself, started to not believe in myself. Yeah. I'm not so smart. College ain't for me. I don't have the money for it. Not academically sound. I don't play at sports. Maybe I got to settle in life. And a lot of times when you're in these environments I talk about, instead of settling, there's ways to make quick money. So now if I'm living in poverty, I have no money, where we have really nothing, but I can go outside and make a few dollars, that becomes enticing. So I teach kids that this is what happened to a lot of us. We started to see that we started to not believe in ourselves because we can't perform or don't feel inspired to perform at a level that society says, and we get caught up in the entrapments of the hood, of the streets, and we started participating in the drug trade. So the Vision program is about showing others, showing them, guess what? You can be successful. Guess what? I have the learning disabilities, and I can show you dozens and dozens of stories. What we do is we find people like these kids that come from these environments that have been successful, and show them, look, you just don't see that. I tell them all the time, as entrepreneurships, the kid with the C's starts the company and hires the kid with the A's to do what he can't do for his company. And kids will be like, what, really? I'm like, yes, I got C student, I got C's in schools, and I have a company. And they're like hope.
Yeah.
So that with hip hop culture, that's a whole other conversation. Hip hop culture is where I meet the kids.
Right.
Hip hop, a lot of people watching may think hip hop and think music. Hip hop is a genre of music. But hip hop culture is a culture. It's a way of life. Hip hop, rap is something you do, rap music. Hip hop is something you live. But they're also together. So rap is an element of hip hop culture. This is where these kids are at. This is who they are. I am hip hop. From the Nike, from how I wear my Nikes to, I can't change it. I tried when I first started coming to church years ago. I was like, oh my God, I got to change everything about me. Then I found out, TJ, hip hop's your DNA. You have to wear your stuff a certain way. You're going to talk, move a certain. It's okay. It's part of who you are.
Yeah.
Then I started to educate myself, but I meet kids there because society shuts the door on that. Yeah. You know, hip hop can be dangerous. The music can be dangerous, but if we don't meet them where they are, we're just old. We don't get it. They keep that wall up. I'm with kids that have a wall up so high they don't trust nobody. They don't want to hear from you. You are the enemy if you're an authority figure. So I have to chip at that wall. Right. So I got to meet them at their culture where they are, and that wall starts to come down. So I use hip hop music and hip hop culture because it's who I am to meet them. I also train and teach on the culture to different organizations. So
yeah,
that's enough about me in the Vision program. I appreciate that, but
yeah, I would love to explore that more sometime. I hope that I think one of the things we've said that we want to do is highlight some of the other programs like the Vision program in our city, and show the good things they're doing to help students.
Yeah, imagine when people ask me right here, what's up with all this black on black crime and we don't hear no outrage? Imagine how that hits. I hear it all the time. I even gotten emails about it. Imagine how that feels when I dedicate my life to it. Yeah. It's just not on CNN or Fox News with me. But the mix, we dedicate our life to it. So when you say that, like, no, you're just not out here with me to know I am with the kids right now teaching black on black crime is not, and where it came from, why we need to stop it. I'm in the jail cell. But then I got to hear from you, well, where's the outrage?
The
that hurts.
Like, you're letting the excellence of your program be your protest.
Yeah, we are here all across the country working on this.
Yeah.
And that all comes from systemic racism. This is where it starts. So we recognize that, then we can start to build. Yeah. And thank God we're doing that now.
Yeah. I'm glad to learn about this too, and I hope that you'll visit thevisionprogram.com. Check out some of the stuff, find out how you can support TJ. The COVID-19 time has cut back on some of the speaking engagements.
Everything almost.
Everything. But we're going to look for a way to be able to support you in that. So
thank you.
We're grateful. Anyway.
So I guess we're going to be discussing more episodes, and
we
if
are.
If you want to see more, hear more,
send us your questions. We're going to put our emails on the screen and find out other ways we can keep this going.
And thank you guys for even the opportunity, for even clicking to watch this, and I'm honored to be a part of it, and you guys watching and participating and supporting is really, really cool.
Yeah.
Really grateful.
Yeah, me too. I'm grateful for your interest. So anyway, this is Uncomfortable Conversations. So thanks a lot.
Thank you.
See you on Sunday.